Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining again. I know it's before the holidays and a lot going on, but we really love having you here. So thank you so much for joining. We have a great presenter today for us. Just a few, I guess, quick updates. As always, really looking for new presenters, new use cases, new tools, have some interesting topics lined up for you next year. So again, thank you for your support of this user group. Today, kind of our general pattern is we have a presentation that we leave some time for Q&A at the end. So today we have an Irishman's journey to the data vault. Keith promised to have references to Guinness and Jameson.
One
Um,
of them. I got one in, not both, but I got one in for you.
there you go. I'm sorry, Keith, for my poor editing skills. Um, So Keith is responsible for data architecture at the Right Triangle. He's a certified data vault practitioner, and we are super excited to have him with us today. So with that, I'm gonna stop sharing and let Keith take over. And as always, please feel free to post questions in the chat or just chat with each other. And Keith, it's up to you if you want to take questions kind of like
Yeah.
in the middle or after.
All right. So let me share an entire screen here. It's always fun when I try share because oh great.
Oh.
Um. Oh no. Technical difficulties. All right. Let me see if it'll let me share.
All right. Well, while Keith is
Fighting.
working through technical difficulties, uh, why won't everyone post where they're joining us from?
Am I sharing a PowerPoint presentation?
Not yet. I only see black screen.
Oh jeez. Okay. So I'm trying to let's try share a window. So the issue is it's not allowing me to share my PowerPoint.
Oh,
Anybody got any advice?
all right. Let me see. I think you can just, if you want to send it to me,
Yeah, perfect.
and I'll be your next slide, please.
Okay. What's the best place to send it to, Veronica?
It's up to you. You can email or message me on LinkedIn.
Let's do LinkedIn because it's usually
All
open.
right. I'm ready. All right. Competition. Where, all right, temperature outside your window right now. Who has the coldest and the warmest? Please post in the chat.
All right, just winging its way to you right now, Veronica.
Okay, fantastic. I got it. Ken, that's not fair. That's entirely too warm. Why do the rest of us have to freeze?
The real feel is 70 degrees.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So we still have
Uh,
heat index too on top of it.
let me not feel bad for you. All right. It's opening up. Uh, let me share. Share screen. I'm gonna, there we go. Share. Oh, there we go. You
Oh,
can see it too. Fantastic.
perfect. All right, so you can start the slideshow if you want.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Look at that.
All right, perfect. So, just as Veronica mentioned, my name is Keith Evans. I'm director of data architecture at Right Triangle Consulting. Obviously, I'm Irish, living in the US. So, and this is a little bit more lightweight for the end of the year. I didn't want to go too heavy into anything deep, but I kind of wanted to explain my own journey and different warehouses and different pipelines I'd worked in throughout my career, and then once I learned Data Vault, how it all added up and connected together. So if you want to go on to slide 3, actually, because I kind of did slide 1 and 2. Just so everybody knows, I'm from Waterford in Ireland. I'm always going to, first thing I'm going to say, it's the oldest city in Ireland. Don't mind any of the Dubs or the Cork people. We're the oldest, and some great things. Waterford Crystal is there. We have a famous bread roll for some reason we love to talk about. And we're an old Viking city, so if you go around the city, you see some of the Viking walls and things like that. So just kind of my own, hey, gotta sell Waterford once I'm on the phone with anyone. So as David Tebler will tell you. So we go to the next slide.
Oop, hold on. I'm trying to manage my screens now. There we go.
And just so you know how I got here, when I graduated college, I worked for Honeywell, and they closed their software offices in Ireland. I went to Dublin, and then I really started forming my career when I was at Sun Life, based out of Toronto and Wellesley, Massachusetts. That's how I ended up here in the US. And I have different stops along my career: Travelers, Amica, Coalesce, and now I'm very happy here at Right Triangle, working away here. So if you go to the next slide. So this is going to be, if you just hit like yeah. So 2001, my first experience working with data pipelines as a data engineer. I worked at Sun Life. We had just purchased Siebel, which kind of spun out from Oracle with Tom Siebel. I was what at the time was called an EIM developer, and now I realize that I was an ETL developer. Then 2004, I went to Sun Life, and I was at the other side of data warehousing and data pipelines, where I was building out COBOL and supporting COBOL jobs that extracted data from a source system. And then I turned around and actually consumed that data as a report writer. And that's really where I started to kind of understand the challenges we had with some traditional architectures around data warehousing and pieces like that. So 2009, that's when I kind of came to the US. I worked on a BI strategy for a particular project. The next one there. So my first major greenfield warehouse I worked with, I'm not sure she's on the phone, but she's just a lot of people know her. I started working with a lady called Tracy McDonough. We worked on a warehouse in Reno, Nevada. We built it as a hub and spoke, except we use more of a normalized ODS as the hub. Um, and then Tracy brought a piece of software, which I'll talk about. And I said, I made a mistake. I said, no, we don't need that software. And lo and behold, I was very incorrect. And Tracy likes to remind me of that. Even when I saw her Saturday, she tells me about that. But it's something that, helped me with my journey and understand. So if you keep going there, Veronica, just hit the button like 3 or 4 times, and just so, yeah, and one more time there. Um, so 2015, I worked on a pure Kimball warehouse. They took data from the source, loaded it into a fact dimensional model. 2018, I was working on and just go back for 1 second, Veronica. I just want to, yeah. Oh, whoops.
I'm sorry. I
That's
have
okay. We can leave it here. This is the
I
fun piece when we're virtually
yeah.
trying to.
So I have two screens. I'm sorry, and they're like both like full screen. So I'm
Yeah,
trying.
I have the same problem. I think that's
All
why
right,
sharing
there we
is.
go. There we
Yeah.
go.
So what I'm marked kind of like 4 or 5 places where I stopped in my career. I was working on warehouses until I realized Data Vault, and Data Vault was the solution to all the gray hair I had collected pre 2019. And and one of the first questions I'm often asked, and I'm sure a lot of us who are really passionate about Data Vault, is like, why Data Vault? And this story helps tell me now why I answer people why Data Vault, and it's really as I call them, the battle scars I've had across my career. Helps with that. So if we go on to the next slide. So kind of that first stop is I worked with a variable annuities ODS per se. It was built on SQL Server with SSIS and T-SQL underneath it. So, there were some positive things about it. It did a really good job of pulling data together onto SQL Server from legacy systems. There was vsam files and DB2 tables. So a lot of us probably have seen those at different stages of our career. We were able to connect it to different ODSs across to create solutions. And there wasn't a whole lot of rules that happened. Like there wasn't a lot of transformation in the extract. But one of the challenges that Data Vault would have solved for us there is it truly was like a one source system kind of drove the architecture and design of it, and it was truly not agnostic to that. And the we were only ever extracting the data points that we needed. So often then we'd get the ODS would get new requirements for new reporting requirements, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, it took a long time to expose those elements. There was multiple teams, and we did execute some soft business rules at extract, which was kind of an issue as well. So it made it very difficult to track things back. There was a lot of good things we learned from it, but then there was things that Data Vault would have solved. So if we go to stop two, so the next one kind of we worked on, was a healthcare payer. Again, this was SQL Server with T-SQL. We were initially brought in. There was a 2008 SQL Server, and support was being kind of running out on that. They wanted to migrate to a newer SQL Server. This was around 2010, 2011. And this is where we started to do some of the things that are good. We started organizing by subject area. One of the huge things, all of us who've been practicing data warehouses, we had truly wonderful business involvement. We got out in front of the business early. They were able to drive it. We were able, with a very small team, we were able to deliver. We still weren't doing Data Vault. I think Tracy and I worked on this together. We hadn't learned about Data Vault, which is a pity at the time. Some of the problems that we ran into is we did execute soft business rules at ingestion, meaning, we changed the context of the data. So when there were issues, we had to go back to those extract programs and adjust them. And we were commingling like descriptive columns with natural keys. So when we talk about Data Vault, and we talk about our hubs, links, and satellites, we did do that, which meant when we did have to make changes, it was a little bit more tricky, and it was just a lot harder. And the other thing is when we built our like dependency tables on our core business tables, we used identity columns in SQL Server, meaning, we couldn't load parallel. We had to load the claims table before we loaded the claims line table, and so on, so forth. But, we had started kind of like evolving this architecture between Tracy and I that kind of helped. So if we go further. So after that, Tracy texted me one day and she mentioned, hey, I've seen this great piece of software at the time. It was Wearescape. This was around 2000. And I was like, I was that silly person in the room, said, we don't need Wearescape. I could do all that by hand. And by goodness was I wrong. So, again, the whole non-Data Vault-y thing about that is that I made that quote because I was silly and young, and but what I did it, I learned from my mistake, and I learned from Tracy as well, who kind of like, was someone who helped an awful lot me develop my career. But it was kind of funny. She reminds me of it because I will tell the other side of this story towards the end of the presentation. But it was an experience and something that kind of helped me along my journey. So if we go to the next. So I was kind of, I had gone to Travelers for a little bit, and then somebody asked me to help them out with a warehouse. It was architected at the time, and it was a Kimball bus architecture. There was facts and dimensions. They were loaded directly from the source. And this was, again, another healthcare payer. In this case, this organization, they kind of carved out a lot of the services to different companies. So we were getting dental claims, we were getting medical equipment claims from different places. Some of them were coming in, as those of us who've worked with claims data have probably come across 837 I's and P's. But even at that, they were every company, albeit it was a standard, would send that data to us in a slightly different way. One of the good things we did that was with this architecture is, we did keep all the data as it was sent to us. We didn't really execute soft business rules on ingestion. And there was patterns based on it around the 837s where possible. We were building this in an agile methodology. But again, when I look at, and with this project in particular, I look at the things that were non-data vault that we like. There was our non-data vault 2.0 in particular. There was dependencies on loading the dimensions and the fact table to get those dimension keys. The business users were not as involved, so we were often making decisions based on what we heard from business analysts and things like that, which weren't always what the business wanted. It was pretty slow to load. One of those examples we were trying to build based on claims payer data, a fact table that told us about readmissions. So potentially Keith Evans leaves the hospital and comes back in very quickly. Is that a readmission based on a mistake potentially the hospital made, or just I'm clumsy and I twisted my left ankle and right ankle in 2 days in a row, which is possible for me, but not for most normal people. So, what happened there is because we weren't truly following that data vault pattern. It took us a long time to kind of crush and rebuild those fact tables and dimensions in regards that. But again, there were some pieces that Dan and the standard and the methodology are there, but we didn't fully get to them all. And so, Veronica, if you move to the next slide. And so kind of this was my last attempt at an EDW before I got a phone call, which kind of changed my EDW life. I was working at a bank in Connecticut, and we were trying to solve an issue. They had a use case where they had their incentive comp data, and they were bringing that data in, paying out the tellers in the bank based on this data. Originally, I'm sure we've all run into this in our careers. Originally, that was kind of built in an Excel spreadsheet that was pulling in flat files and connections to a SQL Server database. So one of the first things I kind of worked with a gentleman called Mike Smoliak as my PM. I'm still really great friends with him. He's a true agile PM. He wasn't a data warehousing guy, so we got to learn an awful lot from each other. One of the things we did do is we did not execute soft business rules on ingestion. We brought in all the data into somewhere within the warehouse, as we received it from the different sources. And then when we created the report or the incentive report, that's where we executed some of the soft business rules. We tracked history, so we started to use hash keys to kind of track history to help to make the patterns easier for us to track history, and we identified natural business keys. It was really great. We did have a lot of interaction from the business owners of this process, including the head of the retail banking sector, which was great because literally these requirements were on a pamphlet, was handed to the tellers. So we kind of got into place that, hey, let's kind of break these out, make them more, make a lot of sense. There was still some challenges we had. Data Vault would have helped us fix an awful lot. It wasn't fully subject area driven. We really just got those files in and kind of on the fly built together this and kept things together. And it was very fit for purpose. Of course, I spotted one typo. Cassie, you can mark that down. But it was very fit for purpose, and we did not design it to be reused. We were in a time crunch, it would have not taken us a long time once we built it to be reused, but we ran into some issues. So we really kind of had to build a fit for purpose solution. So really these kind of 5 stops, kind of like I was thinking about this as I was, developing my career. And then I get a phone call. If you go to the next slide, please. So I get a phone call from my old friend Tracy, and she said, "Hey, Keith, I have a position here." And at the time, the bank I was working with was bought by a bigger bank. And she said, "I've got I'm working on a contract. I'm being converted to full time, and I need to backfill myself." And she goes, "I want to build a data vault on Snowflake." And I said, "Oh, great." I had heard of data vault at that time, and I wasn't fully kind of like, I just did a little bit of research on it. So, I kind of went on board with Tracy. We looked at different tools. She had her heart set on Snowflake. We looked at Redshift. We looked at the warehouse that was in Azure at the time. I think even IBM came out to talk to us, but we did our due diligence. We decided Snowflake was the best solution. and she had seen and she'd heard Dan talk a couple of times. I think she knows Veronica and Kent very well, and said, I think Data Vault will be a great solution for this. And she asked me to go learn a little bit about it. So a couple of years back, I tried to build my first POC Data Vault. We had the training scheduled for February of that following year, just prior to COVID. So I took my first stab at it. I was about 80% there, but Bruce McCarthy, I'm not sure if he's here, but again, an absolutely wonderful person who I learned an awful lot from. He steered me to get the last 20% correct when I actually did the training. So again, this was a life insurance company. We used Snowflake. Ironically enough, the reason I bring up my quote is we used Wearscape, and I realized how powerful as a tool Wearscape was at the time. It really, really helped us. So again, very simply, we had multiple different types of source data. Some was flat files. Some we were able to connect directly to a SQL Server database to bring it through. We used APIs. We had started to kick the tires as well with one of the vendors we had that were supplying data that I believe they may have used it after I'd left this company, but where we were using Snowflake Marketplace. For those, yeah, I think this is a picture we've all seen a million times. One of the beauties of the Data Vault approach is, we separate out the hard and soft business rules. And when we're loading into our raw vault with our hubs, links, and satellites, we're truly only executing those hard business rules, and we're never changing the context of the data. Then we use the business vault as well, kind of to aid with some of those query performance where we need it, and then we kind of landed into a information mark. One of the first information marks we built, we set a Power BI dashboard on top of it. And one of the things I tell this story when people ask me about Data Vault is on a Thursday afternoon we were reviewing kind of a raw information mark with one of the managers that was going to use it, and he spotted a bug on it. He basically said, you've selected one of the wrong underwriters. You have the same underwriter in two places, but it was two different underwriters. I said, perfect. So we went back, and on Friday morning, because we adhered to those Data Vault practices where we're using Wearscape, we were able to rebuild that information mark with the correct data, and he was able to validate it because we had our soft and hard business rules where we needed them, because we did not, and we brought everything in from the source that we needed, the tables in, and because we were using an automation tool, it allowed us to track the issue back very quickly and make those adjustments. As I think Mark Schulte, who works with Bruce, always said, is one of the beauties is when you build an information mark, you don't have to crush and rebuild when you do make a mistake. Veronica, if you go to the next slide. And just out of the interest of time, if you hit the button, I think 10 times, you might get them all. So one of the questions I'm often asked is like, why Data Vault? And here are the things. And the reason I wanted to put this slide together is based on my own journey to Data Vault. These are the things that I would have loved to have on that first experience of building a a data warehouse. You can recreate the source. I don't know how many times during my career I've been asked, is like, why does my report say A today and B yesterday? Or David Tebelo says A and Keith Evans says B. And it's like, I'm trying to fix or trying to figure out that when I can recreate the source, when I understand the dates those reports were written in Data Vault, it helps an awful lot. I just saw a question. I generally build physical data vaults. Business Vault. I start with virtual, and then when there's performance issues, I'll persist that data where it makes sense. And I can talk a little bit about some of the techniques we've used for that in Snowflake. The other thing is it's organized by business subject area. So, in 2010, I heard an awful lot about data lakes. Then I read or listened to, actually at the time, Bill Immon's book about I can't remember the exact title of the book, but it was about how a data lake can become a data swamp. Because we're organized in Data Vault, I think it helps us an awful lot. It's not a true data lake, but it really starts us on that journey. And the thing I really like about ingestion into the raw Data Vault in particular is their simple patterns. There's a very simple pattern for a hub, link, and satellite. There are some complexities to making sure those things are correct, but the patterns are simple. and it suits itself very much to the automation tools that are out there, where it be like using a Coalesce, using a VolSpeed, using a Warescape, or even using some of the templating that's out in there for DBT. They're really simple patterns, really great to understand. And there, I just realized, Cassie, there's another one for you to track. I have the same thing up there. It's organized by business subject area twice. I believe what I was really trying to say in that second one is it does really help us kind of engage with the business. I talk about my example of delivering a bug fix very quickly to a business user. That helped an awful lot. It helped build trust between the business and the team that we're developing. I think we all know a lot of times when data warehouse projects don't go as successful, it's because we have not gotten full engagement with the business. It's scalable, whether we are trying to solve a simple use case or we've got a huge company. There's lots of people have built data vaults that have trillions of rows going into them. I've never been that lucky yet, but there's a lot of people that have done it and it being really successful with that. It's flexible, it's agile, it suits. If you've got a data vault and we need to deliver a very important information mark to someone, we can hyper focus on that. Or maybe we have a team, we get a new source and we bring all those tables into the data vault. It really, really helps with that, and that's one of the reasons I've given. Um, it's Snowflake is a great platform for it. I mean, this is a Snowflake user group, so it allows us, parallel load it. The hashing algorithms are there. As I think the question that Oliver asked me there, do I build physical or virtual business vaults? Depending, like I mentioned, I will start with a virtual. I'll just put a view on top. If it's a cumbersome table, I can create. If it's off one, maybe materialize view. And now with the Snowflake dynamic tables, that's another way to very easily switch something I've created as a view into something that persists and can be a lot more, a lot more robust for querying. The other thing is the business rule segregation. I still think that was the biggest light bulb moment when it was explained to me and explained why that's important. So we execute hard business rules into our raw vault, but we don't do soft business rules that change the context until we're going into our business vault or into our information marks. It sounds very simple. Now I say it. I'm a little bit older, so I can look back on that reflection. So these are the real reasons. The other thing I get asked an awful lot, I think, Veronica, I'm sure you've been told, Kent, anyone who's worked in data, is like, well, why is it better or worse than using Kimball or anything? And I often say, you can use both together. It's not a mutual exclusive decision. And one of the things I've loved about Data Vault is it truly is focused on delivering value to your business, and those are the people generally signing our paychecks or signing our budget checks or whatever we need to do the same thing. And I did mention, I touched on it, and it's a pity Tracy wasn't here right now, because I did walk into her office when we built that life assurance data vault on Snowflake, and I said, "Yep, you were right about Warescape. I apologize about that comment I made many moons ago." And she's in pseudo retirement. Anyone who knows my friend Tracy, and a good few people do know her, will tell you I'm not sure how long retirement will last. She said it's going to last, but my niece is a beautiful artist, so I got my niece to write that quote, and I presented it as a retirement gift to Tracy. So I think she enjoyed that. So before I tie my Guinness story into this, as was requested by Veronica, any questions? I know this is very kind of high level, but I do think it helps to touch base on why we all enjoy Data Vault, and to hear why someone who's worked on multiple warehouses now thinks this is the best solution we have. I've either bored everyone to sleep, Veronica, or I explained stuff really well.
No, I think you explained it so well.
All right. So Veronica, when Veronica asked me to speak, and I was trying to we said, like, it was coming up to the holidays. I didn't want to go too deep into how I've used dynamic tables to implement information marts or anything like that. I wanted to keep it a little bit more lighthearted. But she did say, "Are you going to tie Guinness or Jameson into it?" And I was like, "How am I going to tie one of these into a Data Vault presentation?" But I did. I was just in Ireland last week. So this time we'll go one at a time. So
Okay.
the data vault and the perfect pint of Guinness. So the first thing is you want to really enjoy a pint of Guinness is you got to find a good bar. And I was trying to think, what can I equate in my journey to data vault? What's a good bar? And truly, that's our platform. It's Snowflake. This bar here is a bar off John Roberts Square in Waterford, Ireland. It's called Welch's. It's actually an old convenience store that was there and somebody bought it, but they kept all the true pieces. So the next thing you need for a really good pint of Guinness is the gas mixture. I have a local bar and I watched the bartender pour a pint of Guinness and she was doing it properly and it looked awful. And then one day she turned around and said to me, yeah, we use 100% CO2. And I said, well, that's wrong. You need nitrogen. So the perfect pint of Guinness is 75% nitrogen, 25%. So what I then equate that to is when I'm building my data vault, the gas and no is our business interaction. If I don't have that correct business interaction as I'm building my data vault, it's probably not going to go well. So if I mess up my measures of gas with Guinness, it's the same thing. It's not going to go so well. So then the next picture here, and when I was 16, I was a bartender. So the perfect thing you need for Guinness is you need the correct glass. It's a imperial pint, 20 fluid ounces. It's a two-part pour. So you angle your glass at 45 degrees, pour it, you let it settle, and once it's settled, then you top it off. And what I equate this to is when I'm building my data vault, my hubs, links, satellites, I use the same pattern every time. And even if it goes a little bit wrong, I don't throw out the pattern. I go back to my original pattern. So that's kind of where I said, pouring a proper pint of Guinness. My dad taught me, his dad taught him. So, unfortunately, I was at home and I was trying to do the Guinness tour and I did not book tickets. So seemingly anyone who wants to do the Guinness tour and you can get the cert to pull your perfect pint of Guinness. That's it. And then the last picture here this is actually a picture with my and with some of my friends where I was in Galway just outside of Loughrea, and you see there's nothing beats a poured pint of Guinness, and you can kind of see they're all uniform to pattern, and then of course, they're consumed at different levels. And this was at the start of a weekend for a wedding, so it kind of there was 1 or 2 pints of Guinness enjoyed that weekend, so kind of I was like, okay, there you go, Veronica. Hopefully, I did you justice. With
Amazing.
um, so that's kind of what I had for today. And some things always anyone who wants to reach out to me, there's the piece. Some of the recommendations, oh, great, perfect, Kent. It is a great tour. Anyone who gets to go to at the end of the Guinness tour, they do the gravity bar, which you get to see a great view of Dublin. Some of the things that I learned. Data Vault has a wonderful community. There's people like Kent I see here, Veronica, Dan, Cindy, Bruce McCarthy, Patrick Cuba. And one of the most amazing things is you can shoot an email to Dan or Cindy or Kent, and they all will answer questions. The same with Veronica. It is a truly wonderful community. So if you're trying to learn about Data Vault, those people are amazing. They've all helped me an awful lot. Getting the correct training from the Data Vault Alliance is one of the huge things that has helped me a lot. I trained with Bruce at the time, and to get his insight was amazing. So there's a couple of questions that we have here. A great call there, Ken. Thank you so much. Would you use Data Vault on explorative projects as well? A new team? I would. I think it's great. Like the separating out hard and soft business rules, bringing in all the data, being able to recreate the source, is hugely powerful. And I would use it on kind of, projects where I'm trying to explore things. I often would say to, it probably, as you're bringing sources in and you have a data science team or something like that, and they can use the raw data vault to find some insights and, it's organized. How'd you get with the teams on board? Like just I mentioned, Kent has mentioned the Data Vault Alliance. That's a great place to start. Getting the proper training is hugely important. It really, for me, I mentioned before I did the official training, I had experimented with some of like the techniques and from what I could get online. And then Bruce, I was lucky. I think we were the last in-person training before COVID, and Bruce came down to Providence, Rhode Island to do the training and really joined all the dots together. So as far as dynamic tables, Veronica knows well. We could talk hours about them. And there's a lot of great people here. So at some stage you can rope me back in. We did a couple of user groups on them last year and how I used them. And there's some great articles out there as well. If you look at what Patrick Cuba has put some great stuff out there as well. If you follow him on LinkedIn or our Medium as well, but we can absolutely, Veronica can put
Sounds like you've just been voluntold to come back and do a presentation about dynamic tables.
I'm Irish. I have the gift of the gab. I can talk anywhere.
All right, I think we have some good questions in the chat as well. Have you faced obstacles to convince stakeholders to change the BI architecture approach to Data Vault? If so, how did you handle it?
I have. I think we all have, right, Veronica and Kent? Anyone will put their hands up. Really, it's focusing on the value it gives them. For instance, often not so much with the business, but I've gone into clients and where they've done Kimball all their career, and they're kind of like, they think that we're trying to replace Kimball as opposed to kind of be additive to it. It's really just doing a POC, showing exactly how Data Vault can help. It's the most simple example I have, but it's always helped a lot where I have two reports that are run on different days. And when and um, debugging those issues. And yet Kent nailed it on the head there with that kind of the comment. The main question to ask is your current approach really delivering the value that you want? And that's what it comes down to. I think Data Vault can deliver value very quickly, and that's what I've always tried to prove out and explain. Occasionally, all joking aside, we've sometimes tried to not use the term Data Vault. We've spoken about all the things that are super, super powerful with it. We talked about, being able to recreate the source system, like the audibility, the agility, that it's technically agnostic. Those are the things that we focused on, and then kind of didn't realize this, like, yep. So Data Vault is the perfect solution when you kind of line up those requirements and those value adds.
Yes, I would just chime in and maybe reinforce. So it depends who your stakeholders are, but time to value. I mean, obviously, any solution can deliver value. And if you're expert in it, you can make it happen for sure. But it's really time to value and how quickly you can ramp up. So kind of like as a leader, if you come to me, I how you accomplish something doesn't matter. It's kind of like the cost and the time to value is what matters. So if you pivot your conversation slightly differently. And again, what Ken said, why Data Vault? Like just for fun of it, sure, it's great, but like know your why you want to change it, and then you'll be able to have a slightly different conversation with your stakeholders.
Yeah. I've never really veered from the standards, to be honest. I think even Dan himself says, and Kent and Veronica will correct me if I'm wrong. If it's pragmatic to kind of move a little bit away from the standard, there's no major issues with it. An example I remember from one of the conferences is someone puts their natural keys on the satellite as well as the hub, to save a join, and I've never, that's probably, but I've never really had to, I've always found the standards are there that meet the needs that I've had. Again, Kent, Veronica might have a little bit more examples of that. And the reason I'm picking on Kent and Veronica is they're right next to me on my screen. So I'm sure there's someone going there. I'm here too, Keith, and you've spoken to me a million times and you're not mentioning me. So I apologize if I've forgotten anyone that's here, but so I don't know if there's anything either anyone would like to add to the kind of like veering from the standards, but the basic standards I've never really had to veer too hard from.
I changed the names one time because they didn't like Data Vault.
Yeah.
But I didn't call them hubs and links.
Yeah, and I've seen that. I don't know, is it you, but I've seen somebody do something similar.
That was yeah. You probably, I know you've seen my presentation on that that I did for a healthcare organization.
I've never built a multi-purpose hub. That's the question. Have you built a multi-purpose hub? I've really kind of separated out. Like it's basically a hub should represent, a business definition of something. So I've never really had to do it. I could understand potentially in a property casualty where you might have where someone may come up with a hub that's a vehicle aircraft, but there's probably a good business reason for it. Like this is what we're claiming against. But I've never done that myself. Veronica, Kent, I'm not sure if you've ever.
No, never. I think
No, it's too
simplicity
hard
would.
it's too hard to separate it downstream.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that was like simplicity, like whatever simplicity is in your brain for your team. I kind of always like, I mean, and in my mind, Data Vault is so incredibly logical.
Yeah.
It's almost like natural, like this makes sense, this is easy. Then it sounds like the path to take. And then I go into arguments with my team and they're like, yeah, validated with Dan. Yes, you're right. I'm like, because it's so damn logical.
Yeah. And the rule is, the business keys should have the same semantic meaning.
Yes.
And clearly aircraft and truck have different meanings.
Yeah.
But I'm the person writing this question, but we have a case in which one system, for example, identifies a vehicle by VIN. The other system identifies a vehicle by VIN number and the license plate. And then there may be vehicles without VIN number.
Vehicles without VIN numbers?
Yeah, a custom built, for example, race car.
Yeah. That's got a different business key altogether then.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I think I would separate those out because, VIN is unique. I just went to a CDVP 2.1 class 2 weeks ago in Orlando with Dan and Cindy. And that's actually the example in even the pre-training. He talks about VIN numbers a lot. And with the exception of like one country in the world, VIN numbers are completely unique as business keys. So you do really have to look at that fairly carefully. It seems like for the, your custom built cars are actually something completely different.
Yeah. That's a really good and interesting one. What was the country that doesn't have VIN numbers?
It's not necessarily the country. There may be like a prototype vehicle that's built, very valuable, that the insurer needs to insure. And why I say VIN may not be unique is that I went to vacation several months ago, right? The same vehicle can have 3 different license plates, and they have to carry the different insurance policies.
Oh, that's a link.
Yeah.
If it's one vehicle with multiple license plates, that's a relationship
Mm-hmm.
between the motor vehicle registration and the physical vehicle itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then the vehicles without VINs or license plates, like a race car, how do you identify them?
Well, there's got to be a way.
Yeah, I mean,
otherwise you couldn't track it in your supply.
You may have a number of attributes like the year, make, model.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a multi-part natural key.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying that within the same hub, the business keys can vary, and there's no conform business definition.
Yeah. Well, that's why it would not be in the same hub. They are different grains and different business keys. So I would do them in separate hubs because there's not even an equivalence. It's not like you've got something with a VIN number that is representative of the thing that doesn't have a VIN number. They're completely physical things, separate
So
physical
in the
things.
example of side, then will we end up with 3 hubs? One for VIN, one for license plate, and one for that unique custom.
Yeah, I think I have to think about that. The unique one, I think that those two, the standard car versus custom built car prototype, they have different meaning. That's a different meaning from a standard vehicle versus a prototype vehicle or whatever the special case is. They all need to be insured, sure, but that's all going to be then, you're going to delineate that with a link with a policy, and the license plates. Like I said, the license plates, yes, the same vehicle could over its life have different license plates, and anything that changes like that, either the license, if it can have more than one license at one point in time, that's a different question than if it can just only ever have a one license plate at one point in time. That's probably information off of a satellite on a link.
Yeah, because if you think you move state, right, you can own a car and move state, you're relicensed. It's a different
Which
license.
is what I did. I actually did this last year. I had bought a car in upstate New York, and in January ended up having it shipped to Texas and then having to switch the license plate and cancel the registration in New York while changing the title to Texas. So, the car didn't change, the VIN number didn't change, but I actually had, licensing in New York State and licensing in Texas, and one of those relationships got expired, link, right?
Yeah.
Effectivity date on a link, and the other one got instantiated.
Yeah.
I have the opposite of same license plate, multiple cars. Because I buy a new car.
Because you can transfer it. Yeah. So the license, in that case, the license plate is a hub. The license itself is a hub.
The license plate is really associated to your registration more than your vehicle, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then Ireland is the opposite because you keep the same license plate, and then we had that weird thing where we changed the format over the year 2013. 13 is unlucky, and nobody just wanted to have 13 on their car. So is it true?
All right.
Perfect.
We have another question, so I just want to make sure we get to everything, then we can come back. So would you use Data Vault on explorative projects as well? A new team just started out with their data warehouse.
Yeah, so I just answered that one. I jumped gun, but yes, I would personally, because you're executing just hard business rules going into your raw data vault. You're not changing the context of the data, so it does help an awful lot. And I think also it helps us kind of like if those kind of POC exploratory projects become real kind of production projects, the transfer from one to the other is not as difficult as if you were just doing it somewhere else. That's my personal opinion.
Jairo, I don't know if I'm saying your name correctly. Do you want to ask your other questions? You also have your hand raised. We can't hear you. You're muted. Maybe.
Might be double muted. It doesn't look.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I think Keith answered the other question, but Oliver had their hand up before me, so it's only fair.
All right, Oliver, you're next.
Yes, we have a situation they considered as unique, where we have a multiple claim system from different source, different countries, and they send claim number in different format. One system send just claim number. Another system send case number plus a claim number. Yet another system send a claim number with another called a symbol. So here, once they all go into the business vault, then there's a issue how you handle the business keys. They all naturally belongs to one hub, is hub claim.
Yeah.
Then you sort from different system, the different format. If you try to cover all different sources, then you have a null for one country, doesn't give you a case number, or you have a null for another part of the world, they have a case number, no claim number. Another system give you the first two, but not the third part.
What I've done when in situations like that is that's where I'm execute into the business vault. I execute some of my soft business rules and work with my business partners to say, hey, here we have the claim number, not the case number. Or at the information mark layer, I might concatenate the case and claim number or something like that. But I'll work with my business users to understand how they want to read that data. And Veronica, Kent, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add to that. Because if you're that's where we're really working with our business to see how they want to see it at that.
Yeah, that's where we end up concatenate the keys. They call it business key, but it's not really business key. It's the concatenate key is a surrogate key.
Yeah, the Data Vault training, we went through this a couple of weeks ago, actually has some very detailed approaches on how to handle situations like that, where it is one, if you're sure that indeed that is really the business key, and in one system it's a multi-part, in another system it's only a single attribute, how to handle when the one system only has one part and the other system has two parts, and it's not concatenating the keys together. It's using multiple attributes and having known pattern-based replacement values for when it is null. Like source system one only has one column, but you need 2 for source system 2, then you have to have a pattern-based way of representing that in the data vault so you don't end up with collisions and things like that.
Yeah.
It's fairly technical and detailed, and we spent like a couple hours on it, I think, in the class.
Yeah.
So-
but the bottom line is don't concatenate.
Yeah.
So Ken, then
you're
what
better
is
off not to concatenate if you can avoid it.
Mhm.
And like Keith said, sometimes you have to resolve these things in the business vault is another way of doing it, and figuring out how does the business really want that represented? Is it truly the business key? Is it really the business key?
So speaking about new standards, kind of like you reference training, will there be any documents published to kind of describe these patterns, or is the only way to learn about them is to
Well,
go
some
to
of that is
training?
actually in the Data Vault 2.0 training in the
Yeah.
certification. It was there. And I think they just went into more details. There is going to be, they're starting to release some like mini courses on the Data Vault Alliance site. I mean, it's not, there's different levels of membership, and some of them you get to see some of these things, sometimes not. But Dan's been revamping. He and Cindy have spent like the last year and a half revamping the training. And so it's a question of whether or not, keep saying at some point they might have to use AI to take the training and turn it into a book.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because not everybody has time or money to go through training. And if they're kind of like standards evolving, it'd be nice to have it in some sort of document.
Yeah, but the one on handling null values in business keys, I think, is in the 2.0 training.
Yeah.
I do remember that from going into a hub or into.
So it's like a -1 or -2, whether it's late arriving or completely missing. And you basically, it sounds like you have a column for each value, and you just substitute what is it, -2s, because they'll never come.
Yeah, I forget what there was a standard, but the number, like Keith said, it's pattern based. You need to have a standard, and somewhere somebody probably has a Medium post about that.
It's like funny, and every tool handles it. That's why none of us actually remember it from top of our
That's right.
heads.
Yeah, because Wherescape handles it, Coalesce handles it. All the ones that are built to the Data Vault standards have a way of handling it. But the trick is finding it.
The next question we have, I think there's a question there. Have we ever combined like using Kimball with Data Vault completely and utterly? I've done it. I think you could, I don't know if you'd want to, but you could build a full bus architecture on top of a Data Vault as a source. It actually, for me, it really helps me deliver Kimball solutions a lot quicker. And then it also allows me to get them into someone's hand. And as I always say, like a star schema that's 70% complete with business feedback, as opposed to waiting until it's 95% complete, you get an awful lot better feedback. And Data Vault allows us then tweak. A couple of times I've worked in solutions where people have, will have a type 2 dimension, some columns they're tracking history, some are not. And then always it happens, someone goes, I want to track history on all the columns. And then it's like, oh, great. Data Vault really helps an awful lot with that.
So think of using the raw vault as your persistent staging area for your star schemas.
Exactly.
Yeah, and sometimes you have no choice because your BI tools need
so it's not really a matter of combining the methods. Data Vault is a methodology within architecture, and the architecture is what Keith showed, right? He's got your core data warehouse is really the raw vault, and then you have business vaults for applying rules, and then information marts, and those are generally, in many cases, they're dimensional models. And so it's more about the methodology than it is the modeling technique when you talk about Data Vault.
Yeah.
All right. Any more questions?
Yeah, really quickly, in the project that we're currently working on, we have our persistent stage persistent. So it keeps there, so we can always recreate the vault, the raw vault, if we want to, if business keys change or source identifiers change, whatever. And I thought I would like to have my business analysts also come to the back end. So instead of being just in the front end with their Power BI and Click, to work in the business vault with us. So we can then focus on the raw vault and the extractions, and they can do a bit of the business modeling as well. Ideally, then, they would be able to see my raw vault and understand it right away. And we had a project where we had a product transfer data coming in from True Systems. but the grains were completely different in the two systems. I thought, hey, I'll join everything and together, get the same grain in my stage, then go into the vault. Then I have one link for the monster both source systems, and then combining the business objects and go forward. I had a lot of trouble there with duplicates and to getting in because the relationships change. And so I had to divert back to multiple links and into an ugly raw vault. Um, ha- have you tried that? Making a beautiful raw vault that someone can just open? Oh, yeah, yeah, that's customer, that's product, and see right away what's happening? No,
Then
huh?
it's not a raw vault.
Yeah.
No.
Business
Yeah.
vault.
Yeah, the number one rule is you have to be able to recreate the source system by writing a SQL against the raw vault. And you even mentioned pre-joining stuff in the persistent staging area. That is an absolute. Please do not do that, because now you've lost your auditability. If you ever got audited, you would have a hard time proving where those numbers came from. And you saw the result. You got Cartesian products. Because you're talking about different grains. And so if you've got one source that's at one grain and another source at another grain, those really are going to be different hubs.
Mhm.
Yeah. And you have to resolve all of that stuff in the business vault. So yeah, in the early days of Data Vault, we always said we never let an end user look at the raw vault.
Yeah.
Because
Really?
yeah, you want to
You know,
confuse them with the hash keys on top of it.
I'm gonna disagree. I
I know
think
you do.
Data Vault is so logical. It's like naming convention. You follow naming convention. Everything is standard. It's like, I don't know, you just follow the links and connections, and I don't know. To me, this is like everything is so clear.
If you
Yes,
can
there are
teach
many
somebody the
yeah.
SQL and they
But I mean,
understand set logic, then that works. Yes.
but there are people that are like working on BI, right? Like there's working on already like massage data. They can take a slight step back. I don't know. I have trust that data people can figure it out.
If they're data people, they can.
Yeah.
And you actually have modeled it properly, like you said. You followed all the standards. You've documented it.
Yeah.
Yes, but what Jairo's talking about, where it's a lot of complex business rules to make it come back together, then that makes it difficult for them to
So
follow.
then the pressure is on you to build your raw vault in a very kind of like elegant and simple way.
And
my
business vault on top of it.
One of my big light bulb moments is Bruce taught me about the true unit of work and not just normalizing out a thing. And he pushed me to a very simple example, and then it but it's like, as I always say, it's like with the raw vault, it's getting the data into the vault quickly and as simply as possible, and then you put all the fancy stuff on top of it.